Welcome back, gang. This will be the last in our three makeup videos, and we'll discuss here how to inherit from PrintWriter class. This will be the central activity to both this week's lab and Project 4. So this video should hopefully tie the notion of PrintWriter and inheritance together in a useful way that you can use for your project. So our goal for the next 15 minutes is going to be to create a new class called ScreamWriter that, as it prints things to some destination place, does so loudly and obnoxiously. Naturally, in order to create such a class, we're going to need a new file, and we'll put ourselves a public class ScreamWriter right up there. Now, ScreamWriter is going to inherit a lot of its behavior from PrintWriter, so I'll include right here extends PrintWriter. In order to get access to that class, I'll need to import things, and since I'm lazy, I'll just import everything from the Java I/O library. There will probably be a few other things in there that we'll need. Just as in the case of other classes, I'll need a way to create ScreamWriters, and that involves constructors. So let's start first with a public ScreamWriter. Now, if you watch the PrintWriter video carefully, you'll know that one of the ways that you can build a PrintWriter is so that it prints to the screen, as in to the terminal output. We'll also want ScreamWriter to be able to do that, and in order for a PrintWriter to do that, you need an output stream as an argument. We'll give ourselves a constructor for ScreamWriter that takes a similar argument. So here's output stream O. If you remember from the inheritance video, all child classes must initialize their parent class by calling super for some constructor. If we don't say super anything, this will be an automatically with no arguments, which will lead to a compile error in this case because you can't build a PrintWriter with no arguments. Sensible thing to do right now is to build the PrintWriter superclass using the argument output stream. We have no idea what happens inside that constructor. Before, when we were looking at oldie and youngin, you could look at the source code and find out what oldie does. In this case, we don't have access right now to the PrintWriter class. We'll probably dig it out of some archived version of the open source Java code. That's a lot of work. So suffice to say, you don't need to know what goes on there. This super constructor right now will take care of all those details for you and set things up so that a ScreamWriter is similarly initialized to be able to print in the way that a PrintWriter is. We'll want to be able to print to a couple other spots. So here's a public ScreamWriter, and if we want to write to files, it seems sensible to take a file argument. There was a way to create PrintWriters that write to files as well, and so we'll initialize our parent class PrintWriter using the file arguments handed in. There's one more convenience constructor that takes a string, and if you look carefully at the documentation for PrintWriter, this string is actually the name of some file that is to be opened and written to. If you were curious about that, you could bop over here to the documentation for PrintWriter and have a look. Here is the string version of how to create a PrintWriter, and it actually names a file, creates a new PrintWriter without automatic line flushing with a specified file name. So, at this point, let's just ask Mr. Java C if we can compile. I'll save this as a ScreamWriter. And according to him, no, we can't. There's a problem. One reported exception, Java I/O file not found exception, must be caught or declared. Well, where could that possibly be coming from? Let's look here at the constructor for PrintWriter, and lo and behold, it does in fact throw an exception, a file not found exception. So let me just make a copy of that guy and say that, like my parent, while creating a ScreamWriter that writes to a file, something could go wrong. I could in fact throw one of these exceptions. Since I'm lazy, I'll probably just write this as an exception. Although you should realize at this point that the relationship between a file not found exception and a regular old plain exception is via inheritance. That exception is the daddy class of all exceptions, and a file not found exception descends from that. You could actually look up the documentation for that, but since a file not found exception is a type of exception, it can be used in place here. We'll discuss exceptions in much more detail later on in the class. Note that the second constructor that writes to files and initializes PrintWriter also needs to throw the exception. Alright, how are we doing? To compile, looks good. So we can at least right now make our ScreamWriters. So here's a ScreamWriter out equals new ScreamWriter, and we'll take a system.out as an argument. System.out again is a type of output stream, so the constructor we're invoking is up here. Say this guy. Now since a ScreamWriter descends from a PrintWriter, it will also have the printLine method that it gets from the PrintWriter. So I can say something like hello world. Hopefully this should print to the screen, but if you recall, there's something about line flushing that doesn't quite go right. So you may have to prompt this guy to flush himself to the screen. So far so good. Now our original idea here though was to do something a little bit different than what PrintWriter does, which is to print text in an obnoxious fashion. The most obnoxious way you can print text is in all caps. If you ever do this in a forum, expect to be booted from the forum because it's considered screaming at people. Thus the ScreamWriter name. Now, in order to change the way printLine works, we're going to need to override it. So I'll give myself a new version, public void printLine, and we'll override for the moment only the string version. Here's a string S. What we need to do is to print things out in more or less the same way the parent does, just capitalize everything. Remember that you can do things the way that your parent does by saying super. Super.println will invoke the parent version of the println method. So all should be well here except for that whole capitalization bit. Come over here, give myself a ScreamWriter, system.out, and I'll maybe print out a hello world. No such luck. How about out.flush? Okay, that looks good, so I haven't broken anything at least. Now, this is actually a point at which we could probably make an improvement. I'm tired of saying out.flush. Let's say this.flush right now. I say this.flush, it'll look around in this current class for an implementation of the method flush. Not seeing any, it'll look to the parent class. So in this particular case, saying this.flush would also be equivalent to super.flush. This is going to alleviate the need for me to write flush after every output from here on out. You can observe that by looking now at this new version of ScreamWriter. I'll ask it to print something, and it's automatically flushed. Much nicer. Still working on that whole capitalization part. So here's S. S is some variable that points to a string. It's probably a quiet, serene string that contains some low caps. We need to figure out a way to uppercase that. If you want to make changes to strings, you're going to be out of luck because strings are immutable. You can't actually change them. But you will be able to create a new string that is a modification of the old one. Best way to do this is usually to look in the string class itself. So I'll ask for the Java string class. Google knows about the Java string class. Here it is, a whole bunch of methods. Now I'm interested in uppercasing things. So instead of by hand trying to troll around here, I'll use a computer to search for text. Probably uppercase is a good search string. So there's something about uppercase and lowercase here, but that doesn't look particularly useful. Next search yields a method. To uppercase. Converts all the characters in the string to uppercase using the rules of the default locale. That sounds promising. Click on method. Down here, converts blah blah blah. This method is equivalent to uppercase locale blah blah blah. No other indications of what might happen here, and there's some bits about strange Turkish stuff going on. But let's try it. That's at least something. All right, I know how to make a string. String s equals hello. Now if I say s dot to uppercase, aha, this looks very nice, very promising. So if I have a quiet, serene string, this will be converted to something that is not so quiet and serene anymore. Seren. Maybe serene instead. At any rate, this is a promising method. Let us employ it in here. So let's call this guy a string loud and say he's actually equal to the to uppercase of this. Now remember, the string s isn't actually changing. What it's doing is making a copy of itself that is being converted to all uppercases and returning that copy. The return type of to uppercase is string, as in it gives a string back as an answer without modifying the string running the method. That down here, the string that's returned from s to uppercase is shown in double quotes. I can also say string t equals s dot to uppercase. Here's t, here's s. So I'll make a loud version of this string over here in PrintLine. And instead of passing in s, I'll ask my parent, please print out this loud string instead. Compile action, reset interactions, come back quite a ways now to the ScreamWriter and system.out. Let's do an out.println. Serene, quiet. Ugh, can't spell at all. String. And lo and behold, we're getting things to work out all right, it seems. Let's try the other version, which is instead of writing to the screen, make a new file. Let's see, loud.txt. No definition for file. That's okay. Dr. Java is helping us out, offering to automatically import it from the proper place. I've got this out now, and let me try an out.println there. I'll need to close this because it's writing to a file. I'll poke around now and look. Are there any non-source files? Ah, yes, indeed. Loud.txt. What's in it? Serene, quiet string. So, it's not too hard to put together a subclass, a child class of PrintWriter that extends and modifies the way it does things. You'll need a few constructors, and you'll need to override some methods. For instance, PrintLine. In this case, we could also override print and printf if you're feeling daring. Printf is a little harder, so in your lab and your project, you only need to override print and PrintLine, provide some constructors, and also provide perhaps a few other methods. Cow writers know how to cowify things, wrapped writers know how to wrapify things. Hopefully this will give you enough to get started on those assignments, and if not, Piazza is always open.